Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. There hasn't been a lot of good news to report about Vermont's dairy industry, but the story is far from over. When the tale of dairy farming in 2020 gets told, one word that's sure to be repeated is resilience. Farming is what farmers do, no matter their age or experience. That's what we found when we visited with young farmers and recent UVM graduates and the 110 cows in their care. Here's Keith Silva.
The cows who call the UVM Miller farm on Spear Street home may pause for the camera, but they don't stop for long. The same goes for the people who care for them.
We are out milking the cows twice a day, keeping them fed. The cows that are pregnant are still gonna birth, so that's what all the farms out here are doing. You can't just stop.
Except in this story, stopping is exactly what happened.
The University of Vermont is asking all of its students to leave town, even those who live off campus. While
Students can leave town, cows can't. These cows are the responsibility of the Cooperative for Real Education and Agricultural Management, or CREAM. It's a 2-semester course in which UVM undergraduates run the farm. Without CREAM, this dairy farm isn't quite the same.
There certainly was never a missed milking or a missed feeding or a missed chore of any kind.
Stephen Wadsworth is a veterinarian at Northwest Veterinary Associates in St. Albans and the CREAM interim faculty advisor.
When the university essentially shut down, we had nobody to run the farm. So the students do all the labor. They are the labor force here. We were incredibly fortunate to have a group of students who had been working here in the past, who had been kind of graduates of the CREAM program, who stepped up and said, we can help. They didn't need any training, they already knew what needed to be done, and though they're being compensated, they were in effect volunteers. They volunteered to spend this last semester and into this through the summer. So it's actually been a very smooth transition.
CREAM is a program at UVM's College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. In a normal year, CREAM employs 17 students. The work of 17 is now being done by less than half that, but the passion for the farm and the cows has more than doubled.
My name's Andy Jalbert. I'm from Portland, Maine, and I'm UVM 2020 grad from the Animal Science program. I'll be in veterinary school in the fall if that meets. If not, I'll be doing that online, which is, that'll come when it'll come, but I just got to keep myself busy, keep working, and I like working with dairy animals, so I can do that here, so that's pretty fun.
I am Claudia Sachs. I'm from Macungie, Pennsylvania. I graduated this past May, and I'm working on the farm for the summer. I had a couple interviews at home actually to work for this various nature centers over the summer doing environmental education, but as soon as I found out that, we would be needing help here, immediately I, kind of wrote letters to those employers saying, I'm sorry, but I need to work at this farm over the summer.
Jalbert and Sachs, both CREAM graduates, are part of a team of 7 running the farm this summer. They're being paid slightly above Vermont's minimum wage. They're helped out by the farm's manager, Matt Bodette, and Dr. Wadsworth. Other than that, it's all their call. Working here for the summer doesn't seem like a sacrifice for these two. It feels more akin to what family does for family.
When this all shut down, you can see that so many students came and asked Matt if he needed a hand, or just making sure that everyone was doing all right. So it is kind of like almost a little family of people, I guess. People don't really leave ever. I think you're always in the loop. I'm always getting texts from people I know who graduated a few years ago asking about how a certain cow, or making sure everything's going all right.
I owe so much that I've learned about myself to the farm and the people here. I've learned, kindness and love from Dr. Wadsworth and Matt and Scott and all the advisors that we've had. And I felt as though anything that I could give back to the program, whether it's paid or unpaid, I owe it to the farm to do that.
Wadsworth has been the faculty advisor for less than a year. He's seen the value that hard work and hands-on learning instills in the students. But it's his experience as a veterinarian, for twice as long as most of his students have been alive, that proves why CREAM is invaluable.
The most important thing I think they get from this program is relationships, how to do relationships well. And there's not a job in this world that isn't predicated on good relationships. And particularly in veterinary medicine, when I'm working with dairy farmers who right now particularly are under enormous stress, if you don't have their trust and you don't interact with them with integrity and honesty and openness, and I really emphasize that in this program, that we're not just building young veterinarians, we're building young, solid people.
I think I fared the best out of this whole pandemic situation because my time here has been extended. I'm hoping to go into education. Working at a summer camp in environmental education probably would have looked really nice on a resume. I would always give up any of that to come back here.
Some of the best friends I've met at CREAM. You know, I think a lot of people care about the work they were doing at the farm and they take pride in that, so they continue to care about how the farm is being taken care of.
The work of farmers doesn't stop for bad weather, a slow economy, or a global pandemic. The same goes for the CREAM program. No matter if they're students or recent graduates, CREAM always rises to the top. In Burlington, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
From the farm to the field. Summer means bees and other pollinators are busy, and the work they do is nothing short of life-saving. A few years ago, we talked about the birds and the bees and other pollinators with a farmer from Fairfax who encourages customers to be helpful when planning and planting their gardens.
We're definitely hearing a lot about pollinators, and it's really good and it's really great. I'm really glad that the public is now becoming aware of what's going on with the pollinators. 80% of global plants are dependent upon pollination services, insect pollination services. So imagine if we lost 80% of our species, what would we have? And it wouldn't be just about we humans, but the whole biodiversity of all, think of all of the wildlife that is dependent upon fruit production, and the pollinators themselves are actually food. Most of our birds in their will feed their babies, larvae stage pollinators. So think of the whole bird population as if we didn't have the pollinators, if we didn't have the insect population, we would not have, and the scale just continues to go up. Our biodiversity would just die. And at this point, our knowledge of what all of our quantity, our reduction in the diversity and amount of pollinators is just really being studied. We're just at the tip of the iceberg of learning what's going on, but everyone is definitely recognizing that they're under threats. The most obvious threats are pesticide use and our habitat fragmentation and just destroying of habitat.
How could a decline in pollinators affect Vermonters?
Let's talk about our farm here, Riverberry Farm. Without pollinators, our strawberry production would be pretty abysmal. We wouldn't have much for strawberries. Same with our raspberries. And then some of our crops, you know, like we were talking about the tomatoes, we definitely rely upon pollinators. We just open up the sides of the greenhouse and hope for the bumblebees to come in and help out with the pollination in there. Certainly with our eggplants and peppers, with our melons, without melons. Our squash plants, all of the squash family is dependent upon a specific bee. It's a squash bee, it's a native bee. It's not something we introduce or manage. It's something we need to have in the landscape so that we can get all of our squashes, both the summers and the winter squashes. So yeah, we wouldn't actually be able to have much food production if we didn't have more pollinators. So it's important on our farm that we try to maintain habitat. We're trying to maintain habitat within 300 feet of every portion of our farm because that's what we consider a reasonable flying distance for bees. So, you know, some can go several miles, but some can only go a short distance. So we're working to try to create this whole mosaic, sort of corridors and patches of habitat within our farm.
What does pollinator habitat look like?
So when you're talking about pollinator habitat, and like almost any sort of, when you talk about the ecological services of any animal, you immediately get into the habitat needs, which would be then, there's kind of like three major prongs of that. There's their food, their water, and their shelter. Most native bees are ground nesting, so they like loose, pliable, like sandy or light soils. If you don't have loose, pliable, open, bare ground, you can consider putting in a sandbox, creating a sandbox, maybe 12 to 18 inches deep, and just pick your length, your size of it, and put it in a spot where it doesn't look like a kid's sandbox. Because you really don't want ground nesting bees interacting with people. They're generally not super aggressive. Most of them are solitary. They nest individually. Bumblebees will have more complex nesting sites, and they're really attracted to like mouse dens, old mouse dens, or any kind of cavities. The other 20–30% of native bees are going to be looking for hollow-stemmed or pithy-stemmed plants like raspberries, elderberry, sumac. So keeping a lot of those native wild areas.
Anything else that you want people to know about what the problem is or what the solution might look like?
I think it's really exciting, the idea of people getting out and just starting looking, paying attention. It's like, instead of taking this attitude towards insect, what is that insect, and I don't want it in my landscape. It's like, what is that insect, and what's it doing? I wonder if it's actually pollinating that plant, or see it nibbling on a leaf. What is that pollinator? What is that plant? Is that a native insect, and is it eating a little bit of my native plant, and it's getting nourishment that's keeping it alive? Changing our aesthetic about our landscape and thinking of it as a habitat not just for us, but habitat for all kinds of organisms will be such a change in our attitude that we will learn to love looking at the life that we create in our landscape.
And that's our program for today. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.